Welcome to Slow and Steady, the podcast where you get to follow along as we try to figure out how to build and run a SaaS. I'm Brian.
And I'm Benedikt. Each week, we'll give you an honest peek into our lives as we work on our products and keep the lights on with consulting. Today is October 24th, and I got a cold as a souvenir from MicroConf Europe.
This is episode number 14, and I am feeling rested. Sorry about your cold. Sorry about your cold, man.
Oh, well, I had a feeling that I had it in me even before the conference, and I'm lucky I got through the conference without it breaking out. But the flight back was a little bit unpleasant, especially the descent.
Man, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I should expand on mine and say I am feeling rested after 5 days off with my wife in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Nice.
Sorry that you went away and got a cold. I went away and got a ton of sleep and fun.
Good for you. I didn't get a lot of sleep.
I guess you're at a conference where you should be networking and doing the hallway track and hanging out with folks at the hotel bar.
True. Yeah.
Dude, update me on MicroConf. How was it?
It was great, as usual. I'm not sure if it was the best MicroConf ever that I attended, because like last year's was pretty great as well, but it was definitely up there. So there's not much difference, I think.
Yeah.
As always, attendees were great, had a lot of great conversations. I met a couple of our listeners, so hi there.
who'd you meet? Let's say hi to them.
I don't remember all of the names, to be honest, but it were a few. So it was great.
Cool.
Enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. Any talks in particular that stood out to you, or?
I don't think I can single out a single one, but what was interesting was that SEO was a big topic this year. Like, I feel like there were at least 4 talks that covered it in some way.
Yeah.
Or at least some SEO tactics. And I'm not entirely sure why that is. Is that a new thing that people are rediscovering? Or I think someone mentioned they specifically pointed out the lack of SEO in the previous year.
Okay.
So maybe put my SEO in and maybe went a bit too far, but I don't know. Maybe it's a hot thing again. So yeah. What else? What was interesting, even though it was MicroConf Europe, there were the biggest segment of people were from the US. So I feel like 1/4 flew over from the US, and then followed by I think UK, Germany, and Netherlands, and then a couple more but like in smaller percentages. But why? It's MicroConf Europe. Why is everyone flying over?
Well, I think because I'm sure many of those Americans wanted to go to Croatia.
Yeah, probably.
The photographs looked absolutely amazing. It's like, okay, I got to find a way to get myself to MicroConf Europe next year.
That might be true. Yeah,
it just looked spectacular.
Surprisingly, as well, there were like 60% new attendees and only like 40% returning. So I was expecting that it would be the other way around or something like that, because I think at least in the past it was similar, like more returning than new ones. And I also expected the photos from last year to have a bigger effect on people who were previous attendees, like when it was in Barcelona or something, that it would motivate them to come back, but apparently that didn't happen.
Well, I'm curious about the SEO thing, because I've been seeing this as well, and I just need to go back and find talking about how often SEO is undervalued early on in a startup's life. And I'm just kind of curious, are there any specific takeaways or a particular talk on SEO that dug into, here are just the table stakes things that you need to do early on just to set yourself up for future success?
Like I wrote down a couple of notes specifically related to user list, and like my notes on SEO actually didn't come from the talks themselves, but from a conversation with Johnny Platt before the conference.
Yeah,
and surprisingly or unsurprisingly, some of the same ideas came up in the talks as well.
Yeah.
So for user list, for example, we're looking. And those are Johnny's suggestions, like having dedicated feature pages, like as landing pages when people search for a specific feature or a specific style of solving a problem, like user segmentation, then have a dedicated landing page or a feature page that talks just about that. Or once we have in-app messages, have a dedicated landing page for that and stuff like that. And then also alternative to pages. So basically for every company that we consider a competitor to be a competitor, have dedicated pages for them. So when people search for alternative to, I don't know, Intercom or Trip or whatever, that they would land on our website. And then maybe even like, I was a bit worried previously that of course we can't compete on all the features, but maybe just say that pretty bluntly, like we're way simpler and we don't do the stuff that others do, but maybe that means we have more focus on your specific problems or stuff like that. And then the third thing was have like apparently we have a lot of good content in our knowledge base, but it's on the subdomain right now. And Johnny also suggested that we moved some of that content to the main website, which is a low-hanging fruit, I guess.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I want to look at that a little bit more during this upcoming week, because it just stuck out again when you said that this topic was well represented in talks this year. Just it feels like, I don't know, it completely. What's the right way to put this? But that it's just interesting that SEO, it continues to evolve, and it just always comes back up as being so important, and that like there's just been so many phases of it where it was super easy to hack in the early days, and then there was all this black hat stuff that then Google started figuring out, and there was an entirely different all these different best practices approaches to SEO. And it feels like now, I don't know, anyway, I'm still like formulating my thoughts on this, but and I'm by no means an SEO expert at all, and it feels like this is something that I need to kind of dig back into, feel at least a little bit up to date on. What are the table stakes things that you need to be doing from day one, because it takes a long time to see the compounding effects of it. Like you got to start it a year in it. You got to start the strategy and the work a year in advance. You can't just like, pay for a bunch of backlinks and like garbage like that. And expect to start seeing results soon. So, okay. Interesting, man. Anything else from MicroConf Europe?
One interesting thing or observation was that for the first time ever, MicroConf Europe talks were recorded. So I think they're going online in a couple of weeks, and I guess like you'll be able to buy a package with all
for
of
the
them.
$99
something
thing?
like that.
Yep.
Or maybe previous attendees get it for free. I don't know what the deal there is, but it feels a little bit like MicroConf Europe is growing up and becoming an equal next to DOS editions, because that wasn't a thing previously. Nice observation. He also was a professional photographer around this time, so I feel like they're putting more effort into marketing this as well in the future.
Well, I've bought my I've got my ticket for for MicroConf Growth Edition in the US.
Oh, nice.
So
yeah, I got one too.
Oh, nice, man. Oh, yeah. So you bought yours. Are you now 100% set on getting your plane ticket? Are you coming, or are you just holding your ticket for now?
I'm just holding my ticket for now,
cool.
But
What's holding you back?
I'd be super grumpy if it doesn't work out.
Okay.
But I still have to, talk about all of this with a girlfriend and make plans and figure out how to get there, how to get back, if we add a vacation or not, if I'm going alone, if she's coming. So there's
logistics.
A couple of open questions, but I really want to go.
Yeah.
So hopefully see you there.
Yeah. Yeah. Hope so. It's so funny. I had two nights ago, I had a nightmare that it's so funny. It's like going back to like the middle school or high school style of nightmare, because it was that I was supposed to be giving a talk and at MicroConf, and like with 10 minutes to go, I realized that I didn't have my slides ready. And like I mean, and I don't remember my dreams very often. Like my wife and I talk about this pretty regularly, that I don't remember my dreams very, very much. And this one is so vivid and just burned into my brain of like just feeling myself sitting there and just like going through, just tab after tab after tab in my browser. And just like panicking. It was so funny to wake up and realize, wow, of all the things to have a nightmare about.
Was that before or after you submitted a talk proposal for MicroConf Startup?
Yeah, after.
After, okay.
Yeah.
That explains a lot.
Yeah. So I did submit one idea, and I'm gonna like noodle around on a couple of other ones, but goodness, I don't know, that after having that nightmare is like, I don't know. That's pretty funny. It's pretty funny, man.
Interesting. What's the topic that you proposed?
So the one I proposed is, the working title of it is the size of the observable economy, which is like a play on the size of the observable universe. And it's just something that I've been thinking about recently, like especially like hearing other folks talk like in indie, like maker circles, bootstrapping circles. That I feel like sometimes we get a little bit too attached to like our local perception of how big markets are, how big the economy is. And it makes me think about like, how impossible it is for us to imagine just the distance from the Earth to the moon or from the Earth to the sun, let alone the size of the solar system, let alone the size of the galaxy, just our galaxy, let alone the size of the observable universe. We literally cannot conceive of it. Sometimes it feels like in bootstrapping circles, just trying to get to 10,000 MRR, 20,000 MRR, and just that our inability to conceive of how large some opportunities are, it reminds me of that inability. And what put it into really sharp relief for me is I've got a consulting contract where I'm doing some customer interviews for a client, and they're like my client's customers are who I'm interviewing for them. I'm interviewing this woman, and just kind of talking through some like struggles that she's having, and some things like that. And at some point in the conversation, she says, for me to really take a look at this, it would need to be pretty inexpensive. I mean, it would need to be pretty cheap. And so I say, okay, so what's that mean for you? She's like, I don't know, like $1,000 a month. And it's like, okay, yeah, cool. I mean, because that is the context that she's working in. And another one of the customers that I interviewed is working at this company that none of us have ever heard of. They're not the hot thing on Twitter. They're not on, TechCrunch or anything. And they are one of many online learning solutions. Mm-hmm. And they did 3 million last month.
Nice.
And granted, they do have some backing, and so that's not to say that they're profitable or whatever, but like they are one of many in this type of solution. And it feels like this is something that that's important for bootstrappers to internalize and remember, is like, if you come up with a particular idea and one of your friends or somebody says, oh yeah, like I can think of 3 that are already doing that, that is actually a good sign. Or it's a better sign than bad. You definitely need to figure out how you're going to position, how you're going to differentiate, who you're going to focus on, who you're going to target, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact that there are competitors is good. It means that you're existing in at least a solar system and not a tiny village. And the solar system is huge. So anyway, wow, just kind of like rambled on that anyway. So there's my abstract, Benedikt. And I think there's like, there could be some fun like back and forth parallels between like visuals of how freaking big the universe is, how freaking big the economy is. And when we're just like sitting at our desk, you know, we're just like staring at this little anthill. Anyway,
I also feel like I feel like sometimes we forget that there's more outside the bubble that we are in, like that MicroConf tiny small companies bubble. And like I like the example with like anything below $1,000 is cheap.
Yes. Yeah.
Like if you ask that question, like if you ask what's cheap to any, I think to most of the people in our circles these days, it will be a significantly lower number that comes up.
What, like what, 19, 29 a month? Like, is that what you're talking about? No, like that's not. I think also I would love it. One thing that I am certain that our like indie, like bootstrapping circles are missing is that 100% of us are doing software. And like, just, it would be so beneficial to have people who are just running a brick and mortar store, you know, kind of chiming in from time to time. Like, I've been thinking, the business that my mom and dad ran from like tiny little Paris, Texas. They were like, it was a 100K MRR business, you know, and it was different. It's service, as opposed to, you know, software as a service that has super, you know, high margins. They had lower margins, but just the idea that this tiny little, you know, business in a small town was doing those sorts of numbers and supporting, you know, a family and then some employees, like millions of people are already doing that all the time. And it just feels like from time to time, you'll just see these questions come up of like, you know, is there room for more, you know, tech companies and room for more software companies? And like, yes, there will be tens of millions that have not yet been created yet. Like it's not going to be run just by these handfuls. Anyway, I don't like, I can back off of that for a little bit.
No, it's interesting. Also one thing that came up in one discussion, and I with you, I was very guilty of that as well. But like, I feel like a lot of SaaS companies these days are SaaS companies for SaaS companies. So it's always delightful when I talk to someone who's running a SaaS for someone else, like not within the circle, because otherwise it feels like we're basically shuffling money around in the community, but like not growing at all. Like just building tools for other tools and being like this somewhat self-sustaining ecosystem. That would be not good at all, I guess. So well, it's really exciting that there are people out there that figure out how to do this for other industries. Like this particular guy ran basically an ordering system for restaurants where they could like manage the menu and then walk around and take orders and do payment via that system. I think it's important to have those players as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like like a little pet project that had kind of been bubbling around in my head for a while. It's like, man, I want to create a software company where my clients are fly fishing shops. Have I talked about that on this show or Bright and Earlier? And like did a little bit of research into it. So I was like, man, it'd be so great. Like my customers wouldn't be other software companies. It'd be like these little fly shops that are, running guides and getting people out into nature. And, but man, there was just nothing there, at least not right now. Just like very, like the benefit of creating software or creating SaaS for other SaaS companies is they know how to use and buy software. And many of the folks I talked to were a little bit more set in their ways, let's say. So, but yeah, no, I'm with you on the idea of finding a non-software target market is pretty fascinating.
Yeah. I don't know how that works, but it's fascinating. That's true.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, I guess so. One thing I'll say real quick here is even though I did have basically took a week off, beforehand I had done some, I could call it some shaping work, to share with the developer that's helping me build out this prototype. And there was a little bit of progress, not as much as I would have liked. It's definitely kind of pulling me towards the sense of, all right, it definitely is getting to the stage where, like getting from 0 to 70%, like this was the smart thing to do, outsource this, like get some foundations in place. And now, like, Brian, you need to dig in there and become the primary developer. It's feeling like it is at that point, where I'm getting ready to start seeing diminishing returns on outsourcing. And at this point, the more that I outsource, the more that I need to learn, at some point in the future.
Yeah.
And so I'm definitely like getting that vibe, getting that feel. It also feels, it does feel like the picture is coming very clear into, all right, what remains to be done. Doesn't need to have perfect onboarding, just needs to have good enough onboarding. Doesn't need to have, perfect customization of the questions, needs to have good enough customization.
Yeah.
And so I need to I'm actually very late on sending my email to my mastermind group fellas, because we did a 6-week cycle. We took 2 weeks off, and now we had agreed that actually tomorrow would be the beginning of our next cycle. And I totally dropped the ball on getting that spun back up. But where that connects in is that I'm wanting to say, okay, my goal for this next 6 weeks is to, get to the end of it with, $500 MRR or 200 or even 1. I haven't decided what the number is yet, but like that needs to be the goal. Is it needs to be generating revenue so that I can then look and say, okay, cool, it is, or yikes, nothing. Maybe I've got something wrong here and I need to kill it and move on, or adjust some assumptions. So that's where I'm at on all that.
That's cool. I think you mentioned it last week that there's not that much missing anymore, so should be able to make it.
Yeah.
Did you you took most of the week off, so you probably didn't talk to potential customers.
No. I tried to. I mean, I did like a little. I did some emailing and even like a little bit of outlining some stuff in my notebook while I was in Santa Fe, but definitely tried to stay offline as much as possible. So just like little spurts just to make sure that everything was cool. I didn't dig in a whole ton.
Good. That's important.
Yeah. So, I'm feeling like let's see. Is there anything else? Do we have anything else in your notes that you wanted to be sure we talked about?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
Again, MicroConf Europe was great.
Cool.
I wouldn't mind if they go back to Croatia next year again. But of course, seeing a new place would be nice as well.
Yeah.
As long as it's not Berlin. Okay.
Right. You're like, been there, done that.
Yeah, I've been there. I prefer some new place.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, so I wanted to ask you, because as I'm thinking about, okay, my goal is to really get this thing generating some revenue. How are you feeling about user lists, growth and traction, and what? Can you just give us an update on where that all stands? Like, what's the status there?
So we had a nice spike in revenue around the launch.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not necessarily sure, like, as I said, like on all of the tries started on launch day, didn't ultimately convert.
Yep.
Like during that time, there was a lot of, I don't know, positive buzz around it or whatever. So that were when we peaked revenue. Since then, it has declined a little bit, mostly because one of the largest customers we had canceled their account.
Mm-hmm.
They had at this stage like 3 or 4 different email tools, and one of them had to go, so it was us.
Okay. Why did you dig in? Like, why specifically did they cancel? And was it
I think they canceled it because they were using Intercom for chat and support.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they could do like the stuff we do with that as well. So it made sense to just move the emails over and use this one tool for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like when they're getting enough value out of Intercom, the price is probably worth it. But when you just use like a tiny bit of it, like a tiny section, like the automated messaging, then it's probably a little bit overkill. Mm-hmm. But for them, it worked out. And while it's a bit sad, I think there's not much to argue about there. And since we plateaued a little bit, so it's not growing that much. Last week we had someone upgrade, so we again have a customer on that larger plan.
Nice expansion revenue.
Expansion revenue. That's a nice thing, and I hope they stay on for a while. But it feels like we don't have a good marketing channel figured out yet.
Okay.
This was one of the things we wanted to get out of MicroConf Europe, like just ideas on what to focus on next.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, SEO is one of those things we're going to try, do those low-hanging fruit activities. That will probably not move the needle in the short term, but hopefully over the next couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're probably looking at some paid advertising opportunities. As you remembered in the office hours a week ago, the Capterra thing came up, like advertising on Capterra. That's something we will consider, I think. And during conversations at MicroConf, I think Alex Humerchef of Jitbit suggested we should try Reddit ads as well.
Interesting.
So we're basically looking at these right now. Not sure that we're actually going to do them because like it's not like we have a lot of money in the bank. But it sounds like those are two opportunities that aren't that complicated to pull off.
Yeah. Are y'all doing any direct sales outreach, that sort of thing right now? Is that another channel that you're thinking through?
We are not doing any cold outreach right now, cold emailing or something like that. But it's something on our radar as well. I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, but then ultimately didn't do it. So, right, maybe it's something we should just start doing.
Oh yeah, I'm not
send out those emails.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting to do it. I was just curious if like that's another thing I've often wondered about, and I don't have the answer to it. I don't know is like what percentage of very early stage startups find the majority of their first 100 customers through plain old direct sales and outreach as opposed to marketing and SEO. And I know that y'all did a lot of work based off of April Dunford's book in terms of positioning. And she, talks very specifically about like making sure that your positioning is loose early. Like it is a very dynamic and moving thing. Is that something that has come up in y'all's conversations as well? Like what you learned in your initial approach to positioning and what you're seeing the market say now? And are there bits of it to be revisited, or is that TBD?
I think that's mostly TBD. We did talk a little bit about like changing the H1 on our website, but like I think that's micro optimizations. I don't think that any of those will move the needle in a big way.
Yep. Okay.
But yeah, like it turns out that blog post Jane wrote about our exercise, reading the book and applying it to our business. It's the most popular blog post on our website. I think it's the most popular blog post Jane ever wrote, and it got even called out from stage at MicroConf Europe. So at least we did something right with this.
Well, I mean that's just one of those. Another interesting thing though is like somebody who's going to is reading that article is probably working on a software product and probably needs a tool like like user list. So I mean that's I don't know, those things are interesting when you just
I would definitely plan for that. Like
right.
I think if I remember correctly, Jane just took a bunch of notes, and at some point the document was so good that turning it into a blog
needs
post
to be a post. Yeah,
was the least amount of work done. Like just adding an intro and an outro and some fillings in between, and she had a really good blog post that apparently resonated with people.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So you never know. Like you can plan for that, but then it doesn't work out. And
shameless plug for my other podcast. I interviewed April Dunford yesterday.
Nice.
And so it won't be going out next week. It'll go out the following week. So anybody listening here, keep your eye out for that on Bright and Early. What else, Benedikt?
One thing, it was nice to meet some of the tiny seed companies, the tiny seedlings, what I like to call them. And especially Peter and Matt from Out of Beta.
Yeah.
It was nice meeting them. Had a lot of fun with them.
Cool. I'm loving their podcast.
Yeah. Did you already have a chance to listen to the recent recording?
I'm halfway through the one they recorded at MicroConf Europe. But there was actually something in the previous in last week's that Matt was talking about in terms of getting SimSas ready to launch, and he was talking about the feeling of like, well, he was saying I'm at least to the point where I'm not adding any more features, but I need to have a better onboarding and like better just like other pieces of the whole product. I mean, it's not just the feature set and the software. The whole product is customer experience, et cetera, et cetera. Totally agree. And it resonated. It like made me remember back to something that Ryan Singer said when I was talking to him about Shape Up and the idea of like when you're doing something brand new, it's much more like the sense of putting, tent poles up, all around the place, and so that the fabric has something to lie across. No piece of it is completely done, but like, all of these things need to at least be, it needs at least need to be held up somewhere. And that I appreciated that aspect of it. And just a reminder that I think it's probably a waste of time, or at least like suboptimal, to try to get any one thing polished and perfect before. Like you need to launch with everything being imperfect, but everything being good enough.
Yeah, I think the part that people tend to forget about MVP, the minimum viable product, is the viable part.
Mm-hmm.
So everything has to at least be upright and standing. It doesn't have to be perfect, but like you can't miss a critical piece of it. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, I want to keep talking about that next. We can put a bow on this one maybe. I kind of want to come back to that. That makes because like that brings to mind for me the idea in art of a gesture drawing. And we should like link to a Google Images search, or you can just like search for gesture drawing. And the idea is like it is very, very rudimentary, but you can immediately tell that's a drawing of that's going to be a person, that's going to be a horse, that's going to be something. And like 100, all of the parts are unfinished, and you build up on top of that, as opposed to like getting this perfect outline of a person and then shading the leg just right. Like, nope, you work the entire thing. You work over the entire thing throughout. Okay. I should maybe write a blog post on that.
It's a good analogy.
Okay. So what do we want to have done or like ready to report this time next week? What are you feeling like?
Good question. I don't really know. I don't really want to commit to anything today. For one, I don't feel like working right now at all. And we also started an internal discussion that I'll probably talk about in a couple of weeks. But we have some internal things to figure out.
Okay.
So I feel like not making much progress on software, but like more on the company structure and things.
Got it. Okay. Well,
that's a teaser, I guess.
That's a good teaser. I will look forward to hearing more when y'all are ready to start sharing that out. Cool. Yeah. I think for me, I want to really, I've said like my goal is I want to get this prototype into a loomable state, in the sense of like it's ready for me to record a loom of the demo, and to truly like have that done. And man, I would like to be able to say that I would have had conversations with like 5 to 10 potential customers. But I guess the part that I can control is I will have done that and shared it with 10 to 15 potential customers. Like that's the part I can control. Hopefully some percentage of those will take me up on it and hop on the phone. So cool. That's what I want to commit to, and that's where I'll be ready to update.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah. Call me out if I don't.
Will do.
Okay.
Should we wrap it up?
Let's wrap it up. Show notes at slowandsteadypodcast.com.
Yeah, and follow us on Twitter, slowsteadypod. And we never ask for reviews and ratings in iTunes and wherever, right? So we should probably start that.
Yeah, if y'all are liking it, give us a review.
Yeah, we'd appreciate
it. Yeah. But more importantly, just reach out on Twitter and let us know what you think. It means a lot. Yeah, it's helpful.
Yeah. Okay, then see you next week.
See you next week.